So, good evening for everybody. Good evening for everybody. Anyway, I necessary to drink a little bit strong tea because today I arrived to second back this afternoon 1 hour ago, because this morning I have to lecture in Kolozsvár, in Cluj, in Transylvania, Romania, and therefore I'm a little bit tired because I drove whole of the day. Anyway, I try to close the item concerning Amsterdam. It's possible, in the last week I asked yet who visited in Netherlands, in the Netherlands. 1 person, 2, 3, no any other. Unfortunately, for continental population, it's not obvious to travel to Transylvania. Why? Because not the beach and the weather is very bad. Therefore, if somebody travel to Amsterdam, necessary some other motivation. But Netherlands, very interesting place. For example, one of the most important peculiarity, everybody speak in English. My first question, even the beggar asking the money, speak fluently English. And which dialect of English? American English. Why? Why spoke, and not only recently, Peter the Great, Tsar of Russia, wrote in his diary at the beginning of 18th century that the second language of Dutch people, English. Why? Recently. Why speaking, even the beggar, American English? Why?
Because of American English?
Why? Trade. Why beggar? Why American? Why not British? Why not Australia? Why not Iceland? Why American? The idea? No idea? Why American? The key is American English.
American TV series.
Sorry?
American TV series.
Yeah, because there is 9 channels of TV, television in Netherlands. No translation. Only subtitle. Therefore, generally the people, recently not true, because focused to the computer for watching TV, watching films and series, but traditionally, the most important place of audiovisual communication, TV. And in Netherlands, and this is the situation in the case of Romania, in Serbia, no translation. No translation, only subtitle. If somebody spent a lot of time watching TV, learn English. Learn English. Not at the school. It's very interesting. Not at the school, learn English. The new generation means generation of the last centuries. It's the 90s. Learn television. And which dialect? Of course, American English. Why? Because 90% of movies made in United States and spoke American dialects. Yeah, okay, turn back to the story. Historically, the Netherlands was the most important shelter for immigrants. Arrived Jews from Iberian Peninsula. During the long civil war, arrived from southern part of the Low Country. Basically Antwerp, not only Antwerp, the smaller Belgian cities moved to Northland. Why? Because the most dynamic economic center was Amsterdam. And the economic dynamism called the immigrants. Not by chance, the central area of immigration, winner of the history, and the area who lost the migrants, loser. Generally, it's true. Each area, the moving of the population and the circle and the trajectory of the moving define exactly the force and the poor and the living standards, everything. Recently, look, migration is not bad. Why? Because the migrants able to brought free elements, free items, money, knowledges, and personal creativity. Three key factors, each historically epoch for economic development. Okay, Jews, the first, the second, Bourgeois, Huguenots, I spoke about the Huguenots in the last occasion, Huguenots, Calvinists, French Calvinists. After elimination of regional self-governance, emigrated to three directions. Britain, England basically, Netherlands and the German countries. And very interesting, the last item, Germans and the Holland-Ganger as named in the Netherlands, the servant, the low rank works, labor, performed by Germans. In the last occasion I remember I spoke about. Therefore, the prestige of German people in Netherlands very low. This day, the normal Dutch people, the German people this day. And the tension, the relation between German and the Dutch population forced whole of the Western Europe. And it's possible, in the last occasion I spoke about, the bad relation demonstrate well the football match between the national team of Netherlands. It's very cruel, even recently, because there is an antipathy between the two nations, even now. And the reason of antipathy is historical roots are of that. And the behavior of German army, Wehrmacht, during the Second World War, divorced whole of the Western occupied area. Not comparable with France and Denmark. The behavior of German army, divorce was in Netherlands. Why? Because compensate, revenge for the bad historical relations. Okay, the first factor of immigration, the Jewish people. The contemporaries agreed and realized Jews helped a lot for Dutch people. For example, English pamphleteer in the 17th century wrote the Jews and the other foreigners having opened the own worldwide commerce to them. To them, it means Dutch people, Jewish people. Why? Because in the last occasion I mentioned a Jewish people in that time live in minority status in different countries, Northern Africa, Near East, Europe, everywhere, and familiar relation connected with each other. Therefore, in this period, one of the most important group of trader, merchant, Jewish people, and partly translator. It's possible, I mentioned in the last occasion, in Ottoman Empire, generally the translator were Jewish people. Why? Because there is a great occasion for learning Hungarian, German, Persian, Turkish, and a lot of different languages. Traveling during the childhood to the different minority community. Look at the other. Other mention, which wrote by Ferdinand Rodol, great historian of the 20th century, he wrote, Jews like that the oil on the water record the form of the water, follow the form of the water, but does not dissolve in the water. Only try to imitate the water. This metaphor. Lived in separation, but very sensible manner follow the economic changes. I mentioned one example. Jewish people in the 16th century felt that the center of economy gravitated to Amsterdam and moved to Amsterdam. In the middle of 17th century, realized even on the time of English Revolution, great upheaval, realized new center will be London, moved to London. Very interesting. And Jewish people migration indicate how changed the power lies, the power area, the gravity area of economy of modern world. Okay, look at the migration. For example, this is a survey about the Great Migration. In the case of France, Huguenots mean the Great Migration, different direction. British Isle, Low Country, and the German area. Huguenots, Calvinists. In the area, the Great Migration area, Balkanic Peninsula. In consequence of great military campaign of Ottoman Empire, which occupied Balkanic Peninsula, it's named Romania. It's the area of Romans. Balkanic people, Serbians, Albanians, Croatians moved northward. And from Iberian Peninsula, Morisco, do you know what mean the Moriscos? Morisco, it's Muslim people lived in Iberian Peninsula, basically emigrated to northern part of Africa. This was the most important. And I have to mention the Swedish people. This is the age of Little Ice Age. It's possible you remember. Little Ice Age means Great Cold Period. Why emigrated Swedish people from Scandinavia? Because the cultivated area shrunk. Therefore, it's climate change. Climate immigrants, as climate immigrants appeared as Swedish people in Europe. And which was the most important job? Generally, the Swedish people moved for soldier. Do you know which army applied as a soldier? Which army applied the Swedish people as a soldier? Which European army? Germans? No. In Germany had a surplus of mercenaries. Not necessary. UK? No, Russian. The Russian army, very interesting. In the Russian army, two minorities dominated. Swedish, and which was the other? In the army of Peter the Great. Scottish, very interesting. Scotland, similarly, a peripheral area. And the Scottish emigration is quite typical to the direction of continent. And in the Russian army, when Peter the Great reorganized a Russian army, applied a lot of well-educated Scottish officer and Swedish officer too. And in the last occasion, I mentioned that a lot of Swiss people emigrated. Why? Because it's a Little Ice Age and the mountain area, the cultivated arable lands shrunk. Therefore, as a guest worker, moved everywhere. And which were the best paid guest worker? Mercenary, soldier. And on that time, it's very high rank of the Swiss halberdier. In the former time I spoke about, Swiss halberdier on that time became the bodyguards of Pope. Even now, a Catholic Swiss halberdier saved even now the Pope. This is the guard of Pope. And the story started in the 16th century. So, if we are looking a little bit closer, the migration source of Amsterdam, we can see there is the inner circle, the smaller cities of Netherlands. It's gravity, it's normal gravity reaction. Move to the capital. This is the greatest city, greatest job possibilities, job market possibilities, it's greatest career possibilities. Other direction are Belgians. Belgium, historically, this is the same, Low Country. But after the independence war, separated somewhere here, and northern provinces arose, and southern provinces declined. Therefore, the people voted with the foot and moved northward. Yeah, this is the domestic servants migration. We can see here German, northern German country. The servant moved to Amsterdam and the Dutch cities. But this is the same reaction if we are looking, for example, in France. The focus of migration is Paris. In the case of British Isles, focus of migration, London. It's normal. Reaction, great urban area call the immigrants. So, very important, in the last occasion I mentioned to you that it's named a Calvinist republic. A Calvinist republic. But the Calvinists on the whole country, only a small minority. A Calvinist proportion, in the last occasion I mentioned that, only 20%. It's a small minority. The situation a little bit same that on the history of United States, you remember, I suppose, WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Even though in United States dominated his circle, the political life. Except two presidents, each of American president came from this group. Historically, the proportion of the WASP was 30%, but recently, in consequence of Spanish immigration, only 60%. If we are looking Netherlands, 20% historically, and now the proportion of the Calvinist population, and the proportion of Catholic, much higher, much higher. If we are looking, for example, Amsterdam, the Church of Amsterdam, we can find 25 Church of Roman Catholic Church. And beside the Roman Catholic Church, Dutch, Reformed, Scottish Reformed, Wallon Reformed, Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Lutheran, Remonstrant, Mennonite, Jewish, everything, everything. It's very important indicator of economic development, the tolerance. The political and religious tolerance. If one area, no tolerance, it indicates a decline. One phase of decline. If there is a tolerance, it's reliable, very, very reliable indicator of economic great perspective of recovery, economic recovery. Therefore, in some area appear or will appear in tolerance, it indicates the very bad future of this city, country area. Intolerance, it indicates very bad perspective for the region where appear. Okay, very interesting the construction of the state. The contemporaries named United Provinces, the Calvinist Republic. Turgot, the Prime Minister of France, defined a state of the Netherlands, Holland, Genoa, and Venice, where the state is powerless and poor, although individuals are wealthy. It's true. Why? Because the institution is a feudal. But in the practice, the state functions under direction of private company. The state only the frame and didn't play great importance of economic development. It's organized private companies, stock companies. And the state organized only the frame of function for these private company, archaic institution. Basically, the government is council of state, because you have to mention it was alliance. United Provinces, 7 provinces form the country, and representatives of 7 provinces form the council of state. State General, this other rank, set in the Hague. Very interesting the capital positions. Why? Because in Netherlands, very small country, half of Hungary, less than half of Hungary. Hungary is not a great country, it's a mid-sized country, but half of Hungary. Two capitals, Hague and Amsterdam. Hague, a political capital. Like, for example, in the American history, Washington. It's a political capital. No other great function, only government. And the ministries and institution of government. In the German history, on the time when existed two Germany, Eastern Germany and Western Germany, in the Western German capital, Bonn, it's possible somebody remember from that, Bonn was the same. I remember 300,000 inhabitants lived in Bonn. It's named the capital village, a real capital village. No any other, only the government institution and the ministries, no any others. A little bit the same, Hague, only governmental institution. But the economic capital, Amsterdam. If you open one geographical guidebook, you can find one guidebook, right, capital is Hague, other guidebook, capital is Amsterdam, and the third capital, two capital, Hague and Amsterdam. No final, because the function, a different function, separated to politically to Hague and economically to Amsterdam. Very interesting the institution. Two key persons. One key person of Dutch institution, a prime minister. A prime minister. It's named Grand Pensionaris, Dutch language. Prime minister. And the prime minister, each time, was the prime minister of Holland. Holland, one province. Not by chance, whole of the country, after that time, after one time, named Holland. But historically named as state, United Provinces, and the official name, the Netherlands. But the most important province, Holland. The general budget, Holland paid 70%. Dominated, therefore, dominated whole of the area. It's the richest one. The capital of Holland, province of Holland, Amsterdam. Not by chance, the Prime Minister of Holland officially and automatically became Prime Minister all of the country. Jan de Witt was one of the most famous Prime Ministers. One pillar, civil bourgeoisie, part, republic pillar of state. The second pillar, governor. It's named Stadthouder. It's Dutch name of it. Governor, not a king, not a ruler, governor only. An older member of family Orange, Oranje, which is the official color of family Oranje? Orange, of course. Not by chance, the official, we spoke about the football, which is the official name of Dutch team. Oranje, but came from color of this noble family. It's very interesting, the tradition behind that. And very interesting, somebody visited in the stadium of Ajax Amsterdam. My favorite football club is Ajax Amsterdam. Because during my childhood launched the great generation of Ajax Amsterdam with Johan Cruyff, you know probably your name, and Neeskens, Haan, this great generation. And my favorite until the 90s was the Ajax Amsterdam, and which is the identity of Amsterdam. There is a national identity. Jews. And very interesting, the fan I visited in the stadium, more times. And very interesting, the fan of Ajax Amsterdam crying, Jews run, Jews run. It's positive. In other stadium, for example, in Hungary, in Ferencváros, not the same meaning. But in the case of Ajax Amsterdam, there is a Jews identity, and for a player running the fans, running Jews. It's very special. It's positive. Okay, turn back to the story. Two pillars: Prime Minister, government. And there is why necessary a government? Because Dutch Republic was born in a long civil war, 80 years war, started 1568 and closed 1648. 80 years long war. And during the long independence war, necessary one person who decided, who commanded the fleet and army. And the governor was the general of army and the admiral of fleet. And it's very fragile construction. Why? Because the Republican saved the Republican construction. And the governor tried to reorganize the state, normal monarchy. And time by time, a lot of conflict had inside of the Dutch society. Two great groups existed in the Dutch society, Republican and Orangists, and hate each other very deeply. And this rupture in the society exists even now. Orangist, Republican. And time by time change the state of form of the state. Historically, republic. Recently, kingdom. Change time by time. It's not a static construction. Okay. This is the two-chamber of State General in Hague, of course. And when appeared on the map of Europe, the country, the Netherlands, this is the Peace of Münster. Peace of Münster, this is a local peace after the 30 Years' War. 30 Years' War is possible who read about the European history. This was a very important war, very devastating war. Started in 1618 and closed in 1648, 30 years long war. And on the side battlefield of this war was in the Netherlands. And Netherlands, general international law accepted as independent state in the Peace of Münster. Therefore, it was independence war, a successful independence war. But basically, Dutch people are trader. And for the trader, necessary to increase the profit year by year. But occupy a European trade. But the great job, not the European trade, international trade. Two ways of international trade, Asian trade, American trade. In the first try, conquering of Asian trade. But Asian trade occupied and monopolized by Portuguese. You remember the story started with Henry the Navigator, member of royal family, who specialized to discovery of African coastal area and the direct sailing way to India, first. Secondly, after the Henry the Navigator, John II, King of Portugal, spur huge amount, huge quantity of money, huge amount to the discoveries. Finance a great how the name is discovery operation of Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama discovered a southern point of African continent and named first time Cape of Storm, and later the Portuguese king John II renamed to Cape of Good Hope. This first step. And the next step, Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese captain, followed the trajectory of Bartolomé Diaz and sailed to India. Somebody know the city where sailed first time in India? Goa. It's very important. Goa, and Goa, there is a very large meaning recently. It's a Goa mean, for example, some mixture of Asian, Indian, and European culture. Mean, for example, conservation, brain modifier. So, Goa, it's a general meaning. A general meaning. It means a little bit more than only the name of one city. This was the place of Goa. I write that way because I'm not sure everybody understood. Goa. This was the headquarters of Portuguese headquarters of prisons in India. And the basic problem for Portuguese, this is a key area. Why? Because the Portuguese captured spice of Indian Ocean, monopolized the spice of Indian Ocean. Therefore, saved information of sailing route. If somebody tried to discover, it's a commercial espionage, killed, executed, everybody. But the Dutch people tried, again. And two spies, Jan Michoten and Cornelius Houtman, successfully discovered not all but majority of the route via Indian Ocean. And unfortunately, from the point of view of Portuguese, close to the prison, didn't execute. And one Dutch merchant paid a ransom for these people. Traveled back to Amsterdam and wrote the information which picked on Portugal. And Cornelius Houtman, this Jan Michoten spent a lot of time in prison. It's not the best place for recovery, but Cornelius Houtman spent only 2 years. It's possible to survive without loss of health. Decided organize a startup. It's a contemporary startup. Organized 4 ships, small fleet, and started discover the rest part of way the route to India. And this is the route of Portuguese fleet. It's turned to Africa, and it's a key area between Madagascar. This is the channel of Madagascar between Eastern Africa and Madagascar. It is key area. Why? Because both sides of the channel allocated fortified settlement by Portuguese. Therefore, if somebody sailed into the channel, capture. But Cornelius Houtman decided find a much dangerous way and didn't follow the direction, the trajectory of the Portuguese fleet, but sailed directly in the open ocean to Indonesia. And historically, this became the highway of Dutch discoveries, geographical discoveries. And the first travel of Houtman, it's produced very moderate profit, but the second one produced 400% benefit. Unbelievable. Not by chance. Organized in the following years a private companies I mentioned not the state, but the private companies organized and function the state and the country. The most important private company was the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch name, Verenigde Oost-Indische Company. The short name is VOC. The stock of this company is a private company, private stock company. But stockholder was the state too. But basically, this is a private company. Inside of the company participate by the state too, the government too, but dominated private stockholders. The stock, 64 tons gold. And very important, it's possible you remember, from Antwerp, Belgian city, lot of inhabitants, rich merchants, immigrated to Amsterdam. And whole of the capital, all of the stock, 64 ton golds. And 28 ton golds paid in by merchant of Antwerp. It's a good example what means immigration. What means immigrants. Migration is not bad. Not bad. There is a lot of problem with the migration. But the winner of immigration's area make great profit from that. Okay. Staff. The staff of Dutch East India Company, 10,000 employees. Very interesting. Very interesting. 10,000 employees function according to Phoenician model. Do you know which was the Phoenicians? It's a folks in Mediterranean area. On the time of Greek period, Phoenicians. Phoenicians invented the money, for example. A Phoenician introduced the money and some straight of mathematical operation. And the Phoenicians organized international trade in the scale of Mediterranean area and invented a Phoenician model. Somebody listened about and there is some information. What means the Phoenician model? Phoenician. Oh, okay. It's important because the Dutch people, the Dutch trader, the Dutch East India Company used the Phoenician model. Not necessary to define what means the Phoenician model. Phoenician model, it's a great invention. For the trader, it's a key problem, minimizing expense, which necessary to pay. Minimize. How possible minimize? It's a minimax solution. Minimize expense and maximize the benefit, the profit. How? Basically, for example, we can imagine Asia. This is an Asian area. This is one market in India, one market in China, one market in Japan, and a lot of small markets around us. And the Dutch sailor discovered this area and realized which are the key markets. And on this key market, constructed one agency. One agency. The construction of agency, for example, 50 employees from Netherlands, serve 2 years, 3 years, and travel back to country, to Amsterdam. And under 50, 40, 60 employees, Dutch reliable person, applied lot of local people. Lot of local people, it's a hierarchy employees, local employees. This is the construction. And occupy only the key market. First, appear. The second step, monopolized. For example, in India, there is a pepper market. First appear the agency and discover which is the relations, local relations, organize the local employees, and finally declare our monopoly is the pepper trade. Who would like to discuss about it? Yeah, you discuss. Okay, call the army and kill them. And for example, somebody discussed, call the fleet, more 100 well-armed commercial fleet, destroy it. This is the Phoenician model. Never discover the region, only the key positions. This is the Phoenician model. Like a spider, a net of spider. And with help of this operation, no classical colonization, except southern part of Africa. You know, this is African Boer population. It's classical colonization with peasants, with local administration, with settlements, but no any other classical colonization in the frame of East India Company. Any other places used a spider model. Only key positions occupied. If somebody discussed the monopoly, and monopolize everything. The most important monopoly of spice. And not only the Asian, European trade monopolized, but for example, monopolized the trade of India. India consumed double quantity of spice compared with Europe. And the Dutch East India Company monopolized. Not by chance, the interest rate, the profit rate, changed between 20 to 40. Go to the bank recently. If you take money to the bank recently, which is the rate? 4%. 4, 3, 5. This is the scale. But on the time, interest rate, a profit rate, it's unbelievable. Not by chance, this century, 17th century, it's named in the history of Netherlands, a golden age. A golden age. Dutch people disdain everybody. This was the richest country. It's very small, but unbelievable rich. Which was the basic problem of Dutch East India Company? Basically, this private company functioned like a state inside the state, totally independent. It functioned like an independent state. Single policy, single direction, single control about the Asian affairs. And the state much weaker. Recently there is a series, a taboo. It's possible somebody, a TV series, a taboo. It's demonstrate well the relation between English state, rivalry between, somebody watched the Taboo, this movie of Taboo, movie series. It's prepared Netflix or HBO, I don't know exactly.
Just the first chapter.
Sorry?
Just the first chapter. I have to keep watching.
Do you know this Taboo?
Yeah, it's of HBO.
Yeah, HBO. Yeah, but it's, do you remember the key conflict, a rivalry between the English East India Company and the state? Because these companies, it's a state in the state and control the same power like a state.
Yeah.
Same value, same quantity of the stock. this is the same situation, but a little bit different, because the British state, it's same problem. But in the case of Netherlands, the Dutch East India Company much stronger. Okay, turn back to the story. But I suggest to you the Taboo, this movie series is very good presentation of spirit of traditional world. Okay, this is the milestone of colonization, how occupy African part, and the most important Dutch agency which founded in Java, Batavia. Somebody know which is the name of the Dutch Batavia? This was the capital of Dutch colony. Which is the name recently? Because recently don't name Batavia, but a different important city. It's a very important city, but not on the name of Batavia.
Rotterdam.
Singapore.
Jakarta. Recently, Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia. But basically, it was a Batavia. We can see the map of Batavia. It's a chess table structure. Very well planned city. Look at the Batavia. Unbelievable. Estimated to 20 to 30 million. It's a megapolis. But the route, the scene of the city are well-planned Dutch city walls. Okay. Asian trade checked, controlled by Dutch Republic. Very efficiently. Produced a huge profit. Look at the American side. Look at the American trade. Not by chance, after the peace treaty of 12 years truce, after the 12 years truce, which closed temporary independence war, formed a Dutch West India Company. Do you remember probably that Columbus, Christopher Columbus, believed discovered India until his death. Not by chance, Amerigo Vespucci verified at the beginning of 16th century, no, it's not true, this is a new continent. And named after him, America. But for long centuries, long time, a lot of people used the traditional name. And named Asia, East Indies, and America are West Indies. If you read, for example, documentary sources from 16th and 17th centuries, from the 19th centuries it's take out from the practice, but until the beginning of 19th century, commonly used West India Company, West India. West India means America, it's other name. Not by chance, founded Dutch East India Company, and a little bit later, Dutch West India Company. Dutch East India Company, which focused to the trade of Asia, very successful. But Dutch West India Company declined. Declined. Why? Occupied coastal area. The weakest rival in the case of Southern America are Portuguese. Because which country occupied, colonized America? England, Spain, Portugal. And the weakest one are Portugal. Therefore, it's an old suggestion, good condition, important condition of the success, good selection of the rivals. You have to find a weakest rival. In this case, a Portuguese was the weakest one. And the south are Portuguese settlements on the coastal area. Temporarily occupied. But wasn't able to make a profit. Why? Because America, empty country. Empty country. No population. No population. Indian population, 90% of Indian population on the century of discovery died. The country became empty. Started the slave trade from Africa, but the quantity of the slave is very moderate compared with the size of country. Therefore, in America, only the state installations function. Why? Because no people. In Asia, the spider model, the Phoenician model is function. Why? Because it's a full countries, lot of local people, necessary and enough only check and control the key markets. But in America, no market. It's empty country. From the base to up, had to construct whole of the state. Necessary to transport peasant, somehow had to organize foundation of village, foundation of city, construct the local logistical background and the local hierarchy and the country and the local, everything. The Dutch people, no practice on that. No practice. Therefore, the Dutch East India Company broke. Total broke. It's a very interesting story of the long American War. Probably you know which was the original name of New York. New Amsterdam, because Dutch people found it, not by chance, one of the most important districts of New York, named Harlem. It's a Dutch city's name. Harlem, and other countries, for example, French people similarly founded New Orleans, which named Nouveau Orleans, but sold to English people, I don't know, English people, Napoleon, I remember, or during the French Revolution. Okay, good. In Asia, very successful, the capitalism of the Netherlands, America not. Why? Because it's empty country. From base to up, necessary to construct whole of the state. But the golden age of Netherlands closed to the end of 17th century. 17th century, the golden age. Why? Because the country is very, very small for the size of global economy. Compare United Provinces, Dutch Republic, population 2 million only, 2 million. England 6 million, France 70 million, but even Sweden, the second line power of the 17th century, 2 million too. Amsterdam population 200,000. On the time, England 500,000, Paris 500,000. Unfortunately, from the point of view of Dutch population, Dutch Republic not in the same weight with the rivals. Okay, we close the Dutch, but not end of today's lecture. Continue with the new phase of global economy, national markets. This is the last great items. National items, national market. If we survey the trajectory of formation of global economy, started with medieval European economy, with northern pole, southern pole, and between the northern pole mean Baltic area, Hanseatic League and Low Country. This is the northern pole, industrial pole, and the southern pole. This is the northern Italian cities, and between two poles, northern and southern poles, the Champagne-Brie, fair of Champagne-Brie. This was the first construction of European economy. The second phase, Venice. Venice dominated, first time, the first leading city, which dominated whole of European and the forming global economy. Second phase, city-states. Very important to mention, city-state. The third one, Antwerp. Antwerp, meeting place between German merchant and Portuguese merchant. But Antwerp, city-state too. The third one, Genoa, not fourth, medieval Venice, Antwerp, Genoa, fourth one. Genoa, city-state, similarly. Why so important? Because the city-state able to focus size to effort and resources to. Fourth, city-state. Fifth, Amsterdam. Amsterdam, a trajectory position between the city-state and territorial state. Why? Because Amsterdam is so small the country that is almost outskirts, all of the country outskirts of Amsterdam. But a little bit closer to territorial state. Look at Europe. National markets and new construction. It's possible, former time I told to you that national state is a new construction. National states only appeared in the 18th century. 18th century. Before 18th century, 18th century, no national state. Before 18th century existed only empires, until direction of dynasties. Look at, for example, the greatest, the largest empire, whole of the human history. Somebody know which was the largest empire, whole of the human history? Mongolian Empire, under direction of Genghis Khan and followers. And it wasn't the Mongolian Empire, not the empire of the Mongolian people. It's empire of family of Genghis, who sat down around the Kurutai. It's family of Genghis. It's not the Mongolians, no meaning. And the majority of population, after some phases of conquering, Turkish people. And the Mongolians became a minority in the frame of, okay?
There are some information that Hindustan is also Turkish.
I am that.
There are some information that Hindustan is also Turkish.
Yeah, but it's no meaning in this context, because if somebody, a member of dynasty, no meaning, not necessary. But very interesting, the prestige of Genghis. The prestige, so high prestige of Genghis, even the communist people, the Prize Secretary of Communist Party of Mongolia created a linkage of his family and Genghis. Because the legitimation for a communist people. It's very interesting atmosphere. Okay, turn back. A nation, a cultural community, a common language, only after the 16th century became the frame of coherence. A common culture, a common language became the frame of coherence. But in the frame of countries, necessary to unify somehow the different regions to national market. Welding together different independent market in Europe, it's possible to integrate in the area, central area of world economy. But for integration, necessary a political ambition and political activity. Okay, look at Europe. Look at Europe on the time of 16th, 17th and 18th century, which was the spatial hierarchy in Europe. The first level of spatial unit, spatial hierarchy, a marriage district. Why necessary to calculate with marriage district? One village population, it's no more than 150 to 300. And the Roman Catholic Church or general custom law prohibit the marriage after the how the name is a familiar, fourth level of familiar connection. The second niece and nephew, Slater prohibited the marriage. Why? Fourth level of linkage, linkage. Why? Not each period. For example, pharaohs in Egypt married with brothers and sisters. Why?
The bloodline?
Sorry?
Religious reasons and to give like a bloodline?
Yeah, because not only, but other basic reason, imagine themselves as a God. And the plan of God had to say, God may marry only with God. Because the quality, you know, for example, the Harry Potter, it's a marked blood.
Like Targaryens in Europe?
Yeah. This was the same logic in the Egyptian dynasty. It's a God married only with other gods. And who is the closest one? Brother and sister. But generally, it's prohibited. Until the linkage, familiar linkage, fourth level. Why? Why? Cheers. Do you listen about the DNA? DNA. This is the heritage material. DNA. The human DNA reconstructed to 2003. Reconstructed all of them. DNA only no more than a copy of each people, each ancestors. But do you know, for example, the nature of copy? No perfect copy. Some part of the copy's DNA injured, broken, mutation, other. If two people, two close relatives, very high the proportion, injured fraction of DNA covering. And if injured fraction of DNA covering, some sickness appear. For example, in the European history, probably you listened about the Habsburg family, Habsburg dynasty. In the frame of Habsburg dynasty, there were typical sickness. Why? Married with each other. Therefore, time by time, covering the same injured fraction of the DNA. And officially, it's prohibited. But in the case, if political interest necessary to marry, it's cancer. May happen. But officially it's prohibited. Therefore, it's a small community, 150 or 300, necessary to go the neighborhood, other villages. But very interesting, it's possible I told to you, there is in Iceland a very special application, handy mobile application. Do you know how many inhabitants living in Iceland? 600,000. 500,000 approximately.
Yeah.
Therefore, very high the probability meet on the dance hall with close relatives. Therefore, in Iceland, there is an application for each inhabitant, and for example, come with dance. Okay, 1 minute. Your name, please. Mother name. Yeah. Okay, it's checking. No, it's function. No, reject. Too close. Yeah, but officially, in the traditional verb, this application functions because I socialized a traditional village. And my father, a lot of times, told to me the network of relatives on the city. It's very boring. There is a second niece and third nephew on the other direction. It's a real oral application laws. Therefore, time by time had to go to the neighborhood, but very close circle of the neighborhood. For example, in the case of French example, 5 villages moved the ambitious bride and bridegroom. The second level of hierarchy, city and the region. Around the city, each city, there was a region. Wilhelm Abel, a famous German economist, calculated ideal city. It's a very old idea. Plato, for example, a Greek philosopher, thought a lot about the ideal settlement, ideal city. Wilhelm Abel, in the 20th century, calculated which is the ideal city in the traditional society, and calculated 3,000 dwellers. This is the ideal, optimal. And for 3,000 dwellers, inhabitant necessary 85 square kilometer arable land. If not only arable land, but for example grazing land, forest, other water covered area, larger. City and region. The third level of spatial hierarchy, pays, is a French name, canton or country, but not a real country, but it's a named country. For example, in Hungary, for Hungarian student, this is a country, a Bihar, for example. It's not only one province, it's a much larger. It's a larger area, which are construct a canton or country, economic unit. For example, I spoke about Bihar recently between Romania and Hungary. There is a great capital, it's named Nagyvárad Oradea, between the mountain area and the marshland area. And this is the commercial center of different areas. Cultural identity. Cultural identity is very important. We came from Biharians. Dialects, it's very interesting. If you tell, for example, communicate, for example, one people came from one region, able to identify which region. I have, for example, one dialect, but unfortunately, the school, even the secondary school, cancelled. But if I travel back to my village, after the third cup of spirit, came back. Because it's pushed down only. Not cancelled totally, but the dialect is pushed down. Folklore, very important, the cloth. If you visit, for example, in a museum, and you can see the cloth on the door, faceless door, you're able to identify age, social status, marital status, everything, and the region. Which region used this kind of the cloth. And the building, rustic architecture. For example, in Transylvania, different nation, there is a different color. For example, a Hungarian minorities using for painting the wall a blue one. And for example, you visit one village and the buildings wall painted to blue, realize living a Hungarian family on that. So for the color, but there is other indicator of identity. The fourth level are provinces. It's changed between 10,000 and 30,000 square kilometers. It's very important, as Jan Dont, Dutch historian, wrote, the living context of medieval city lay here, neither in the kingdom nor in the seigneury, the former being too vast and rather unreal, the later too small. What means the province? For example, I came recently from Transylvania. Transylvania is a province, but in the case of Germany, Bavaria, it's a province. Saxony is a province. Prussia is a province. Tuscany, a province. In the traditional time, this is the ideal size of governments. Why? Because able to communicate with help of traditional devices of communication quite quickly. Because moderate size. Political unit, for example, a German history and Italian history unfolded in province unit. Tuscany, Lombardy, Bavaria, Saxony. These provinces form the frame of political state unity. Okay, if we are looking at the modern state, national state formation, we can identify the roots of formation. For example, in the case of Spain, we can identify different roots of formation. In the case of France, Paris. In the case of British Island, London. In the case of Italy, Rome. In the case of Hungary, for example, the central area, Prague. And we can follow until Moscow, Russia. Okay. Look at the life cycle of the state, territorial state. After the collapse of Roman Empire, early Middle Ages, time of disintegration. Everything, everybody, everywhere, disintegrated the state. This was the world where only one legal system functioned, blood revenge. No, only local area, official law. In the between the 10th and 13th century, the state integrated, formed the French kingdom, Holy Roman Empire, Hungarian kingdom, Polish kingdom, so and so. It was a time of great integration. 14th century, the plague, the Black Death, great strike on the territorial state. And from the 16th century started reintegration of territorial state. We are living a very interesting period because it's an open question. The political life and the economic life and generally the function of Europe will unfold in the frame of state, territorial state, or will appear upper integration in the frame of European. Open question. But from the 16th century, a territorial state became stronger and stronger and stronger and centralized the resources, centralized devices of decision. Okay. Before the national state analysis, necessary to mention one theory of Fernand Braudel. According to Fernand Braudel, if we are thinking about the territorial state and cities, we have to separate three types of the cities. The first type of cities, open cities. Open cities. The typical open city are Athens. Athens, recently capital of Greece. Athens had three regions. The first, Athens, the city. The second, Piraeus. Piraeus, the port, the harbor of city. And the region. The open city means if somebody had citizenship of Republic of Athens, not importantly which region, may live in Piraeus, Athens, on the rural area. The same value of citizenship. Same value. The location, the lodging didn't influence the quality of citizenship. This is the opposite. This is the same situation in the case of Roman Empire. If we are, for example, looking the history, early history of Christendom, St. Paul had Roman citizenship, lived in Jerusalem. Not Not important the location. Roman citizenship in Jerusalem. Open city. This is the first, open city. The second, a closed or segregated city. If we are looking the feudal world, the feudal Europe, one feudal city, for example, Szeged, lived inside of the wall. Inside of the wall lived a civil community according to civil law, a bourgeois community according to bourgeois law. Out of the wall, feudal law, feudal ocean, feudal society. If somebody walked into the city, walk basically different world. It's possible, you know, that this was a medieval mansion that air of city make free. If somebody spent 1 year and 1 day in a city, launch from serf status, launch from the feudal. Not easy survive 1 year and 1 day. It's foreign people in the city. Nobody support him. Not easy, not easy. It's a great challenge. This is a closed city. A closed city, a segregated and privileged city. And the last one, a subjected and submitted city, the city of modern state. Why subjected? Why submitted? Because the modern state broke the privilege of city. Equalize the legal system, not only in the space, but in the society too. Because in the traditional city, the nobleman live basically different legal conditions. The bourgeoisie, different, and the peasant, different. And the modern state equalized and unified the legal system. Not only in the social structure, but the space too. Broken. But very interesting, some element of traditional society saved. For example, in London, traditionally independent city with privilege. But on the time of formation of modern English state, broken. But some traditions survive. I tell this is the last mention today. If Queen or King of England approaching on the coach to London, on the boundary of London, wait him mayor of London. And the king, or recently the queen's employee, had to ask permission. Permission, go into London. It survived tradition. In history, in the 16th century, was real meaning. Because it's a privileged city. Had a chance, had a law for rejection. No. But recently, this is a folklore tradition. But English people like the tradition, therefore even though the Queen on coach or train or I don't know by car driving to London, stop on the boundary of London, ask permission of mayor, permission 100% take the permission and continue to the Westminster. Okay.